Okay, I'm going to make another video and read to you some words from a book that was sent to me as a PDF file, and it's called The Kingdom of the Gods by Geoffrey Hodson. And I'm going to start this. I've got to do two things. I wish there was more of me than one, because I'm going to be showing orbs as I read this. And let me get to where I'm going to start reading this. I'm going to be reading about the atom. They had quite a lot to say about the atom in this. The atom of science. Okay, I think I'll start right up there. And now and then I will click on this, because when I put it on play and then I move my mouse in the other screen, it stops here. I wish it wouldn't do that. Let me get this all lined up now. My tripod holds things in a crooked way. Get me a new one of them. Okay, the atom of science. The pronouncements of some modern scientists concerning the nature and construction of the material universe coincide very closely with the teachings of occult philosophy throughout the ages. The quest for truth directed in this age by physical scientists is leading away from the materialistic and toward the transcendental outlook. The mechanistic view of scientific phenomena is being discarded, and the method of explaining them by the construction of models has come to be regarded as a hindrance rather than as an aid in understanding. In one generation, physical science has turned its back upon the mechanistic view and upon such models. Sir James Jeans states, "A review of modern physics has shown that all attempts at mechanical models or pictures have failed and must fail. For a mechanical model or picture must represent things as happening in space and time, while it has recently become clear that the ultimate processes of nature neither occur in nor admit of representation in space and time." Within living memory, the foremost men of science were proclaiming that in matter was to be found the promise of life. That dictum has since been reversed. The atom is a material particle. As a material particle, has itself been found capable of subdivision. All substance is now said to be composed of discrete units of electricity of differing polarities, like minute grains of sand. The structure of all atoms is at present regarded as being similar. Their shape can be taken as spherical, and their mass is concentrated at their center. The nucleus is composed of neutrons and protons, the former being neutral or uncharged particles, and the latter being charged with positive electricity. It is surrounded by an electrical field formed of a planetary system of negatively charged particles moving in round or elliptical paths or orbits, and called electrons. The relatively simple concept of the atom, in which all protons and neutrons are in the nucleus and all electrons are outside of it, is by no means final. Evidence is appearing for the existence of other elemental particles. Whilst the whole universe is regarded as being composed of atoms, and every atom known up to now has consisted of combinations of the above basic particles, other types of particles have been discovered. One of these is the positron, or positive electron, which has the mass of an electron. The neutron is suspected to be a proton-electron pair, a close combination of protons and electrons. The meson, thought by many to be the agent of cohesion in all substance, has been discovered in cosmic rays. These discoveries of protons and neutrons in the nucleus are leading directly toward the view of occult science that all matter is extremely concentrated, crystallized, or frozen form of energy. I'll skip down a little bit here. For the materialist, space was filled with real particles, exercising on one another forces which were electric or magnetic or gravitational in their nature. These directed the motions of the particles and so were responsible for all the activity of the world. These forces were, of course, as real as the particles they moved. But the physical theory of relativity has now shown that electric and magnetic forces are not real at all. They are mere mental constructs of our own, resulting from our rather misguided efforts to understand the motions of the particles. It is the same with the Newtonian force of gravitation and with energy, momentum, and other concepts which were introduced to help us understand the activities of the world. Thus, the idea of the structure of matter becomes more and more abstract. The electron itself, for example, is not regarded only as a discrete spherical body moving in geometrical paths. Another way of picturing particles is as waves, which concentrate in volumes, corresponding to or centered around the above paths. The concept is rather strange, though it appears to the lay mind more analogous to a noise which is spread throughout a certain region, a kind of disturbance in the ether, most intense at one spot and diminishing very rapidly in intensity as we move away from this spot. Occult science adds to this the existence of but one, indivisible, and absolute omnipotent intelligence in the universe. And this thrills throughout every atom, an infinitesimal point of the whole cosmos. There is design in the action of the seemingly blindest forces. Each particle, whether you call it organic or inorganic, is a life. The breath of heaven, or rather the breath of life, is in every animal, in every animate speck, and in every mineral atom. This breath of life is defined as cosmic electricity, the force that formed the universe, the noumenon of such manifestations as light, heat, sound, adhesion, and the spirit of electricity, which is the life of the universe. For the occultists, the one life is an objective reality. We speak of a septenary, I don't know that word, scale of manifestation, which begins at the upper rung with the one unknowable causality and ends as omnipotent mind and life immanent in every atom of matter. Universal mind is the next chapter. The occult teaching of the existence of a universal directive intelligence receives support from certain men of science, if not from all. Sir James Jeans, in The Mysterious Universe, writes, "We discover that the universe shows evidence of a designing or controlling power that has something in common with our own individual minds. The universe can be best pictured as consisting of pure thought, the thought of what, for what, of a wider word, we must describe as a mathematical thinker. A thought or idea cannot exist without a mind in which to exist. We may say an object exists in our minds while we are conscious of it, but this will not account for its existence during the time we are not conscious of it. The planet Pluto, for instance, was in existence long before any human mind suspected it, and was recording its existence on photographic plates long before any human eye saw it. Considerations such as these led Jed Berkeley to postulate an eternal being in whose mind all objects existed. Modern science seems to me to lead by a very different road to a not altogether dissimilar conclusion. Sir Arthur Eddington has stated, "Something unknown is doing, we don't know what. That is what our theory amounts to." Something unknown is doing, we don't know what. Well, that sounds about like how I would explain something. Modern physics has eliminated the notion of substance. Mind is the first and most direct thing in our experience. I regard consciousness as fundamental. I regard matter as derivative from consciousness. The old atheism is gone. Religion belongs to the realm of spirit and mind and cannot be shaken. J.T. Sutherland, writing in the Modern Review, quotes the following. Einstein, "I believe in God who reveals himself in the orderly harmony of the universe. I believe that intelligence is manifested throughout all nature. The basis of scientific work is the conviction that the world is an ordered and comprehensible entity and not a thing of chance." J.B.S. Haldane, "The material world, which has been taken for a world of blind mechanism, is in reality a spiritual world, seen very partially and imperfectly. The only real world is the spiritual world. The truth is that not matter nor force, not any physical thing, but mind, personality, is the central fact of the universe." And here's another quote by Curtly Meitger, geologist at Harvard. "The nearest approach we have thus far made to the ultimate in our analysis of matter and energy indicate that the universal reality is mind. Similarly, in psychology, the brain is no longer regarded as a satisfactory model of the mind, a mechanism of concrete particles which constitute the whole machinery of thought. The brain is now looked upon by many as an instrument, though a separate energy an instrument thought to be a separate energy which drives it." The notion of space empty or space ethereal has today been abandoned, and nature is now viewed as energy patterned into worlds patterned variously also for every stick, stone, or bit of life upon them. Man thus becomes one with his environment, which pervades him wholly, and into which he extends himself hugely. Born according to his manner, he holds his unique pattern as a momentary opportunity for experience, a stream of creative continuity and aim. Anywhere where vitality exists, aim is found. A primitive consciousness exists as purpose in every living cell, and organized itself as structure. This primitive mind becomes specialized, layer upon layer, supersegment upon supersegment, into complicated reflexes, later more complicated instincts, and later still more complex emotional tones and feelings, integrated and channeled for expression through thalamus and hypothalamus. Finally, there has been added the neopallium, the new brain, more and more exquisitely integrated, a concatenation of such ordered representation and swift activity that through it primitive power can eventually appear even as the gift of critical discrimination. Slowly, too, this primitive cellular power is distilled into a sense of spatial and temporal relationship. Up to the present of evolutionary time, the highest product of this captured, specialized focus, energy of cosmic origin is our self-awareness, self-direction, power of surmise, the power of speculative imagination, which almost denies the universe itself for boundary, all radiated, implemented, and sometimes disturbed by emotion. Purpose is mediated by protoplasm. Our consciousness is an enormous amplification of early purpose as primitive as tropism, and it is raised to its highest form and focus for a greater good by the contrivance of symbolism and imagery and the invention of the tool of speech. This distillate of consciousness is thus focused into self-awareness. Such achievement is nothing but the flowering of the aim, drive, and purpose, innate and part and parcel of every cell in our bodies. Of the nature and origin of these forces, science as yet says little, but the movement of scientific thought is away from the concrete and toward the abstract. This is parallel with the evolution of human intelligence, the direction of which is through the analytical and concrete toward the development of the faculties of synthesizing and abstract thinking. As an illustration of this, the idea is beginning to dawn that time itself is typical of the kind of material of which the physical world is built. In thus probing external phenomena to their depth, the scientist and the mathematician fall back upon symbols and equations as their only means of expressing their discoveries. Solid substance has melted into a shadow. Only mathematical equations and flowing forces remain. What is the next step likely to be? The latest pronouncements, as indicated by the above quotation, show that certain men of science, admittedly not all, are beginning to postulate mind as the ultimate reality. Sir James Jeans, in his book The Mysterious Universe, also says this, and I'll get to it. I gotta turn my page. To my mind, the law which nature obeys are less suggestive of those which a machine obeys in its motion than of those which a musician obeys in writing a figure or a poet in composing a sonnet. The motions of electrons and atoms do not resemble those of the parts of a locomotive so much as those of the dancers in a cotillion. And if the true essence of substance is forever unknowable, it does not matter whether the cotillion is danced at a ball in real life, or on a cinematographic screen, or in a story of Boccaccio. Sorry about my pronunciation. If all this is so, then the universe can be best pictured, although still very imperfectly and inadequately, as consisting of pure thought, the thought of what, for want of a wider world, we must describe as a mathematical thinker. In the choir of heaven and furniture of earth, in a world, all those bodies which compose the mighty frame of the world have not any substance without the mind. So long as they are not actually perceived by me, or do not exist in my mind, or that of any other created spirit, they must either have no existence at all, or else subsist in the mind of some eternal spirit. Today there is a wide measure of agreement, which on the physical side of science approaches almost to unanimity, that the stream of knowledge is headed towards a non-mechanistic reality. The universe begins to look more like a great thought than like a great machine. Mind no longer appears as an accidental intruder into the realm of matter. We are beginning to suspect that we ought rather to hail it as a creator and governor of the realm of matter. Not, of course, our individual minds, but the mind in which the atoms out of which our individual minds have grown exist as thoughts. We discovered that the universe shows evidence of a designing or controlling power that has something in common with our own individual minds. Not, so far as we have discovered, emotion, morality, or aesthetic appreciation, but the tendency to think in the way which, for want of a better word, we describe as mathematical. And while much in it may be hostile to the material appendages of life, and is also akin to the fundamental activities of life, we are not so much strangers or intruders in the universe as we first thought. Those inert atoms in the primeval slime, which first began to foreshadow the attributes of life, were putting themselves more and not less in accord with the fundamental nature of the universe. This, if the concept be added of individual intelligences, archangelic and angelic embodiments of the great thought, might well have been written by an exponent of occult philosophy. It is, however, but just to quote also Sir James Jeans' further words that everything that has been said and every conclusion that has been tentatively put forward is quite frankly speculative and uncertain. The source of knowledge. The position of the occultist, on the other hand, is somewhat different. The age-old teachings of occult science are founded not upon speculations, but upon the continually repeated direct observation of highly trained occult investigators. With the inner eye itself fully operative and the technique of its use fully developed as a result of training under their adept seniors in evolution, these seers perceive direct the phenomena of nature on all planes of existence and corroborate the findings of their brother seers who have gone before. For this reason, to the occultists who believe in the knowledge acquired by countless generations of seers and initiates, the data offered in the secret books are all sufficient. The assertions of occult science are made on the cumulative testimony of endless series of seers who have testified to this fact. Their spiritual visions, real explorations by and through physical and spiritual sense, untrammeled by blind flesh, were systematically checked and compared one with the other, and their nature sifted. All that was not corroborated by unanimous and collective experience was rejected, while that only was recorded as established truth, which in various ages, under different climes, and throughout an untold series of incessant observations, was found to agree and receive constantly further corroboration. The methods used by our scholars and students of the psycho-spiritual sciences do not differ from those of students of the natural and physical sciences. Only our fields of research are on two different planes, and our theosophical instruments are made by no human hands, for which reason, perchance, they are the more reliable. Even so, such teachings of occult science are, as offered to the general public, are invariably presented as ideas for consideration, and never as dogmas representing final truths. Above all things, free inquiry is insisted upon by those who practice and teach the methods of occult science. And I'm going to stop here. I could read on, but this is my first reading of this book. I didn't know that Theosophy had so much in it about science and cells and atoms and things. So I hope I will get some interest in exploring this further by people who might be interested in these pictures that I'm getting and who might want to read some of these books. These ancient mystics of old, they were onto something. But so often, modern Christianity has called them occult and not to be looked at or relied upon or anything, but to be rejected at every hand. And they have stopped the progress of our understanding of this kind of abstract world that right now our particle physicists are getting an inkling as to a lot of things that the mystics already have said about it. Like that everything is all one substance. Everything is the same thing. And only the motion of something will be what causes it to be a certain thing or another certain thing. Motion is what defines what something will be, but it's all light. It's all the one substance. And so since I've been looking at light, I've been having to delve a little into science, which I never was too good at. To tell you the truth, I really hated science. I cannot tell you why a boat floats. You know, we'd have these science questions, and I would have to just try to word my answer exactly like the textbook said, because I couldn't understand what the textbooks was saying. But I have more understanding of this that I'm reading that's abstract and even quite more complex, I think, than the science I used to try to understand. And it gives me a feeling of its correctness, especially coupled with the fact that I'm taking pictures of it and that I'm seeing it with my physical eyes. And I do realize that other people who don't see it can look at you like, oh, maybe you're losing it or something. You're going baffy on us. And so I'm hoping that will end, that people will start knowing that truth is not what any of us have suspected it to be. We all have to open wide our mind and allow new thoughts to guide us. And it doesn't matter if you're A1 perfect about what you think. Really, the most perfect thing to understand is that love is a cohesive force that holds everything together, and that we should always just be very, very entwined with everything that is love or beauty or just, well, I can't say truth, because truth to one person is not true to another. But I think when you love wanting to find out about who Creator really is, and you're not going to rely on a book and scriptures to tell you that, but you're going to go within your own self, that you will find a truth that you can live with. At least you can live with it. I know I've done that, but it has put me at odds with a lot of family members, and frankly, not a lot of people around me are even interested one little bit. Sometimes I worry about my pictures. I need to put them somewhere in some kind of archive, because my family might just erase them off of my computer. And I think they're important, that I'm capturing a world here that has never been seen before, as far as anyone I know of. I look at images for all kinds of things under Google Images, and I never see anything like what I'm seeing. I see similar things about the movement of subatomic particles that looks like some of the pictures I'm getting. And I highly suspect that I might be looking at something so small it's like the Planck size, which is hundreds of thousands of times smaller than an atom. And right away that sounds like, well, she is so crazy. How could she think a little camera, a little digital camera and a LED light and a shiny place on a marble of glass, or any shiny place really, it doesn't have to be glass, it can be metal or porcelain or even a shiny leaf on a tree. There will be orbs when you focus in real close. At least there are for me. But you have to have your shutter closed so that you don't get an exposure of more light when you take the picture. I do wish other people would also be able to get these pictures and let me know their thoughts about it. Anyway, this is the Dove Lady. This is all I have to say for today. And I'll talk at you again soon. Love and light to you. Bye-bye.